Hello, welcome to Quick Lessons. My name is Mr. Tota, and my goal is to make sure that you pass your next exam. Today I'm going to show you how to solve basic Punnett square problems, also known as a monohybrid cross. If you haven't watched my introductory lesson on this topic, please go ahead and click on this video here and watch that. Really helpful. If you have, well, let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to show you how to solve Punnett squares using a 5-step process. Let's go ahead and go through each step. Step 1, you're going to find which allele is dominant and which allele is recessive. Alright, this is going to make more sense in a moment. Step 2, determine what the phenotypes are for each possible genotype. Remember, phenotype is the physical appearance, genotype is what genes you have, or your genetic makeup. That can be either homozygous dominant, heterozygous, or homozygous recessive. We'll talk about what those are again in a moment. Step 3, figure out the parents' genotypes. Once you figure out the parents' genotypes, you can then go ahead and create a Punnett square. And once you have the Punnett square, you can calculate the probabilities of the offspring or answer the question. Depends what the question is asking for. So just keep these steps in mind. I am going to be referencing them a lot throughout the video as we go through these questions. So with that in mind, let's go ahead and go on to the first question. Number 1, what I'm going to do is I'm going to read the question. I'm going to pause a moment, and at that time I want you to pause the video, try to work out the problem on your own, see if you can do it, see if you can go through those steps, and then go ahead and click play so that you can watch me actually go through the problem and see how to solve it. So number 1. In cats, the dominant allele for whisker length is long, and the recessive allele is short. If an individual that is homozygous dominant is crossed with an individual that is homozygous recessive, what will be all the possible genotypes and phenotypes of the offspring? Alright, so I'm going to pause a moment, let you go ahead and try to figure it out, pause the video, and then I'm going to continue. Alright, so hopefully you paused the video and that you are hopefully comfortable with your answer, but if not, it's okay. That's what I'm here for. So let's go ahead and start with the first step. Step number 1, find which allele is dominant and which allele is recessive. Alright, this isn't too hard. It tells us right in the question. Sometimes it will be a little bit harder. It says right in the beginning sentence here, the dominant allele for whisker length is long. Alright, so the long, or the allele for being long, is dominant. Alright, and we're going to represent that by a capital W, because capital letters are always used to represent dominant alleles. Alright, and now what we want to do is find the recessive allele again. It says it right there in the first sentence. The recessive allele is short, and we're going to use a lowercase w to signify recessive. Alright, so we have dominant long whiskers, recessive short whiskers. Let's go on, let's go to step 2. Determine what the phenotypes are for each possible genotype. Alright, remember that's homozygous dominant, heterozygous, and homozygous recessive. So since we're using W, homozygous dominant is going to look like this, big W, big W. Heterozygous is going to look like this, big W, little w, and then homozygous recessive is going to be little w, little w. Remember, the prefix homo means same, so if it's homozygous dominant, they're both the same and they're both dominant. If it's homozygous recessive, they're both the same and they're both recessive. The prefix hetero means different, so heterozygous is different. Alright, so if somebody is big W, well, of course, big W is going to be expressed. Big W, remember, is long whiskers. So if somebody has big W, they have long whiskers. If somebody is big W, little w, well, the dominant allele is present. Whenever the dominant allele is present, that means that you're going to have the dominant allele expressed. So somebody with big W, again, is going to have long whiskers. Now for little w, well, now there's no dominant allele, they're both recessive. So the only possible allele that's going to get expressed is the recessive allele, which is short whiskers. All right, now that we have that all figured out, let's go ahead and move to step 3. Step 3, figure out the parents' genotypes. Again, this one isn't really too hard. It tells us right here in the question. It says one individual is homozygous dominant and the other one is homozygous recessive. Okay, so we know that homozygous dominant is big W, and we know that homozygous recessive is little w. So now we know the genotypes of the parents. Step 4 is to create a Punnett square. All right, so you're going to draw out boxes just like this, 4 boxes all connected together. We're going to put the genotype of one parent on the top. So let's do the homozygous dominant on top. And we're going to put the genotype of the other parent on the side. Let's do homozygous recessive on the side. And it really doesn't matter which one goes which. It's going to come up with the same result in the end. But all we're going to do is we are going to now fill in the box. So we're going to take this W and this W, put it in this box right here. And we'll take this W, and we'll put it in this box right here. And we'll take this W, put it in this box right here. And we'll take this W, and put it in this box right here. So now we have our Punnett square completely filled in. This is going to tell us the probability of the offspring having whatever trait we're talking about, which in this case is whiskers. All right, so step 5, we're going to calculate the probabilities of the offspring and or answer whatever question the question is asking for, which in this case it's asking for us to list all the possible genotypes and phenotypes of the offspring. So if we look at the Punnett square that we made, there's actually only one genotype throughout the whole square. It's just big W, little w. Right? So if we were to go and list out the genotypes, the possible genotypes of the offspring, you see over to the right over here, I have put the possible genotypes in general. I have homozygous dominant, heterozygous, and homozygous recessive. You notice there's no homozygous dominant in this square anywhere. So the chance of the offspring having homozygous dominant is 0%. The next one, heterozygous, or big W, little w, they're all heterozygous. That means there is a 100% chance that the offspring will have big W or little w. If we instead look at little w, we'll notice that there is also no little w in the Punnett square, so that again is 0%. All right, so that's the genotypes, but now let's list the phenotypes. So remember the phenotypes, you can either have long whiskers or you can have short whiskers. So the percentage of long whiskers, well, if we go here, remember it was all big W, little w, which we said in an earlier step means you're going to have long whiskers. All right, which means since there's no little w here, there's not any possibility to have short whiskers. All right, so in the end, there's a 100% chance the offspring will have big W, little w, and a 100% chance the offspring will have long whiskers. Hopefully that wasn't too bad. We are going to move right along to the second question. Again, same thing. After I read the question, I'm going to ask you to pause it for a moment so that you can try it on your own, see what you can do. It's really good to try to work problems out on your own, and then go ahead and play it for the explanation. So question number 2. In mice, the dominant allele for eye color is black, and the recessive allele is red for red eyes. If 2 heterozygous parents are crossed, what is the probability that the offspring will be heterozygous? All right, so right off the bat, this question is asking for something different than the last question. It's asking for the probability of the offspring being heterozygous. So we're looking for a specific outcome. So please go ahead, pause this video, take a moment, try it on your own, go through those steps. I'll give you a moment to do that. All right, welcome back. Hopefully you did all right. Let's go ahead and start solving this. So step number 1, find which allele is dominant and which allele is recessive. Well, much like the last question, it's actually in the first sentence here. So it tells us the dominant allele is black eyes, and then it also tells us the recessive allele is red eyes. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to use B to represent eye color. So big B is going to be black eyes and little b is going to be red eyes. This could be any letter. It doesn't matter. You can choose whatever letter you want to use in the whole alphabet. Step number 2, determine what the phenotypes are for each possible genotype. So remember, there's 3 possible genotypes. There's always 3 possible genotypes. You can have homozygous dominant, in this case is big B, heterozygous, in this case that's big B, or you can have little b, or homozygous recessive. If someone is big B in this case, the mouse is going to have black eyes, right? Because dominant is black eyes. The dominant allele is black eyes. If somebody is big B, or heterozygous, since it has that dominant allele, the dominant allele is going to overpower the recessive allele. So again, it's also going to have black eyes. And then if an individual is little b, well, there's no allele there for black eyes, so they're going to end up with the recessive allele, which is red eyes. All right, let's move on to step 3, figure out the parents' genotypes. Well, we notice in the question here, it says they are both heterozygous, so they're both going to be big B, little b. Step 4 is to create a Punnett square. Here's our Punnett square. We're going to put one genotype on top, the other genotype on the side. They're both the same this time. And then we're going to take this B and this B, put it right here. This B and this B, put it right here. This B and this B, put it right here. This B and this B, put it right here. So you'll notice this is definitely different than the last question. In the last question, all the squares were the same. And this time we have 3 different genotypes. All right. There's 2 that are the same, but 3 different genotypes in there. So if we go on to step 5, calculate the probabilities of the offspring or answer the question. So if we look at the genotypes, like I said, 3 different genotypes. There's 3 different possibilities here. Big B, big B, little b, and little b. There's only 1 square for big B, big B. Since there's only 1 square, that means it's going to be 25% for that one. Big B, little b, there's 2 squares. So that's going to give us a 50% chance. And little b, there's 1 square. So it's going to give us a 25% chance. So that's the genotypes. But moving on along to the phenotypes, we could have black eyes, or we can have red eyes. Remember, we said big B, and big B, little b. Those both are going to give you the phenotype of black eyes. There's 3 squares here with either one of those. So 3 squares, 25 plus 25 plus 25, that's going to give us 75%. And then the last one here, little b, which will give us red eyes. There's only 1 square, so that's 25%. Thank you so much for watching this channel, Quick Lessons. If you enjoyed it or if you found it helpful, please go ahead and like and subscribe for more content. I really enjoy doing this. I'm going to be coming out with a lot more higher end content, more high school level kind of stuff. I'm actually going to be teaching high school next year, so I'm really excited to go ahead and delve into that. So far, I've just been teaching middle school. So again, please like and subscribe, and have a great day.